If you're trying to get the most out of the Squarespace blog, or even new to it and just trying to get your head around the basics, then I have got 3 tips. Well, actually, there's more than 3 tips, but 3 main tips that will help you get started and also use some of the more advanced features to get the most from it. I'll ease you in with the simple stuff first, and we'll get a little bit more detailed as this tutorial develops. And I don't want to waste too much of your time with the introduction, but if you need any additional help, head over to skool.com, that's school/website-builders. I'll leave a link in the description. But otherwise, let's crack on. Okay, so in our coaching community on the school platform, one of our members asked this question today about how we can change dates and manage the blog section in our websites. It's relatively straightforward, but then that's one of those situations where if you know, you know, and if you don't, it can take a little bit of time to find out the area that you need to change. So I thought this would be a nice, easy and quick video that I can show this step by step, both for the member of our coaching community and also if you stumbled across this issue, then hopefully it'll help you. First of all, we're going to go to the blog section. I'm going to use the Pixelaze Academy website because this has got quite an established blog with lots of posts in there. If we look at the front end of the site, we can see our blog listing here, and we can see the date post added in. You can actually hide the blog date post if you want to. I also use this approach to organize other sections, like, for example, to build a directory within the website by manually changing the date orders. There are times in the past where I've just put the top post as the most recent and then gone back in time on all of the others. So when I need to add another one into the directory, I then make sure that I change the date in between the two that I want. I probably won't make any actual changes, but I will show how we do it bit by bit. And also, if you haven't been using Squarespace for long and you don't know what summary blocks are, this is kind of a custom code version I've added in. It allows you to feed in dynamic data, like, for example, your latest X number of blog posts through to other pages of the site. And I think it creates this really nice effect. But anyway, let's jump into the admin area. I've got to open in a new tab here. Let's go to pages. And then what we're looking for is our blog, which could be called news or announcements or updates, depending on how you name it. And in this case, it's in the main navigation. So if I scroll here, we can see the blog is here. There is an option to search our site. So if in some instances, we have blogs not linked on the menu system, so we can't find them directly in this menu system. And that can work quite well if you don't really want it to be front and center. For example, if we're using it as a directory and we want to use summary blocks as a way of interacting with it. I'm not going to go into too much detail about the more advanced effects we can get between blogs and summary blocks. I think that's a whole new video in itself. And if you'd like me to create that video, just leave a comment and I will certainly do so. So let's go into our blog page, click on that item there. And from here, we can see our list of existing blog posts. And if we add a new one, it will default to today's date and time, meaning that it will, when we publish it, would automatically slot into this first block. So let's have a look at this first blog post here. If I click on the 3 dots and then go to settings, from here, I've got the option to add a thumbnail image, an excerpt. This is what will appear in the summary block or in this listing page here. We can just see it in the background here, which is a short description about the post itself. But if we go to options, we can see the status option. This is why it's not overly clear once a post has been published, because there is no date option in the admin area. So instead, we click on the status option and now we can see our calendar. We can switch it between putting a blog post back into draft, meaning that only someone with admin access can see that. Needs review. So if you have multiple admins with different levels of access in the site, it basically will just notify the main admins that a post has been submitted for review. I've not really used that feature at all, but maybe there's a video in that in the future. Published, so you publish it as of today's date and time, but we can manipulate that in the calendar below. And finally, we've got scheduled, so you can post it and schedule it for a future date. This is something I really should be using more often with our blog posts because I post quite lumpy, so it could be 2 or 3 weeks before I post, and then I might add 3 posts in, and then I will use the calendar, don't tell anyone I do this, to separate those blog posts so that they don't all look like they're being published in a lumpy way. If I was more organized, and this is what I recommend to you, I would use the scheduling option to schedule, say, one post roughly in a week's time, another one the week after, especially if we're using consistent kind of newsletter styling posts as well, where you want it to be working like clockwork. As I said, do as I say, not as I do. But if we wanted to change our publish date for a already published post that we've uploaded, and we can do this at the point of publishing as well, we can set both the date and the time. And there's been a little minor tweak to how the calendar works, which I think works much better now because the time is in a different slot. It will usually publish it at the current time. But if you're concerned about having posts published at 3 a.m., then of course you can change it. I don't tend to worry about the time setting at all. As you probably guessed, all we're looking at now is if I change this one from March the 31st to the 30th, we could change that. If you wanted to go back several years, and this is an absolute pain when transferring a blog from a different system like WordPress, for example, and we want to archive maybe 10 years ago, unfortunately, there is no quicker way of going back. So we have to do this. And yeah, that's the bit that's not really fun. There is a way that you can build automations that will do all of the clicks for you. And that's something I'm potentially looking to do, to build a little tool that will allow it for this very niche purpose. But yeah, for now, this is essentially what we have to do if we need to backdate all of our posts, maybe say 10 years ago. You're looking at probably wearing out your mouse or touchpad and it taking some time. But outside of that, basically that's it. Of course, if I cancel this, I'm going to discard those changes and I go back in to edit. This is both good and bad news. If I then go to change the status once more, it comes back to today's date. It doesn't remember the last month that we set. So we'd have to do that on every single post. So I just wanted to wrap up with a very quick recap of what we've covered in this and the core requirement. If I scroll down the menu system, find our blog in here. Remember, I can search at the top as well if needed. Click on these three dots, go to settings. From settings, I'm going to go into options. And then from options, I'm going to click on the status, bearing in mind there is no date setting in the settings. And then check that published is ticked to make sure that it's not still in draft. And then I can change the date on this calendar system. And once we get used to this simple process, of course, once you know how to do it, it opens up so many opportunities for how we can use the blog and calendar tools within Squarespace. And one final takeaway point, you can actually add as many blog sections in your Squarespace site as you want. You could use one for a directory and one for a blog or news feed, and that will work just fine. This time we're going to show how we can use summary blocks, how we set them up, and then how we can link in blog posts. And we can see this example here, where we've got some custom code where I've coded a carousel with the text overlaying it. It's very modern web design, very Apple, and it's something that we can't do within Squarespace directly. I probably will create a tutorial showing how I coded this. I did most of the heavy lifting with this with ChatGPT, to be honest, but it helps that if you know what you're looking for. I'm actually going to change this up a little bit as well, because I want this kind of going across full page. And at the moment, there's no control options to kind of slide it back. But I think what I'm going to be doing in future is adding a summary block into this hero section. So instead of these TV screens all being on there, which I think loses a little bit of the impact, I'm going to have them coming in through a carousel one at a time. And the other option I was going to add in this option here is to fade them out. So I'm always trying to get the balance between not having too much movement or interactivity that becomes confusing, but having that little bit of our playful Pixel Haze Academy approach. We don't tend to take ourselves too seriously, and we want that playfulness to come across through the website without overdoing it and it becoming a jumbled mess. Let's go back to the blog post. I've got this blog section in the Pixel Haze Academy blog. The reason I've chosen this is because it's quite established, so we've got lots of content that we can feed in. So I just wanted to show how we can create a summary block and drill it down, showing categories or tags or even featured options, so we can really choose how we feed in content from blog posts. And as I mentioned in the other tutorial I've recorded, which is probably published by now, you can use the blog feature within Squarespace for way more than a blog. For example, you can build detailed directory systems, and also, this will probably be the next video I create, you can use the summary blocks, so the title, image, and description, or the example that I've got on the homepage, as in, for example, this one here. We don't show the date post, so it's not a blog content, even though we're using the blog feature. Then instead of it linking to a blog page, which is more restrictive in terms of how we design, we can get each of these to link through to individual pages on our site. For example, a dedicated landing page for a particular product or service that we're offering. And the benefit of doing this approach is that this content is dynamic, so we can add them really easily without having to go back through and design the look at the homepage every time we make an update. When we're looking at things like document archives, or as I mentioned, directories, we can use the blog post for a way that it wasn't intended to, but then combining with a summary block, we can get really advanced effects. And that's what I'm going to show you now. Instead of doing anything with the blog itself, what I'm going to do is go into the not link section, and I've got way too many pages. I've got a few that I need to clear out. So I think I've got a demo page that I've built up for past tutorials here. Yeah, this will be fine. Okay, so I'm going to add a new section just going to add a blank one. And the first thing I'm going to do is add in a summary block. So if you're new to Squarespace and you're a bit confused as to what this is, or maybe you know what it is and you just shied away from it whilst you're getting everything in place, then I'll cover it. So we can see that there's rounded corners on this. This is because I have overridden with custom code the default style. I'm also completely fed up of these images because they've been in Squarespace for probably 3 to 4 years now as part of the templates, maybe even more. So come on, Squarespace, let's freshen them up a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to go number of items to 3. I'm going to switch it from a wall to maybe a carousel so we get uniform styling. And it's picked up the styling from the homepage. The only thing it hasn't got is the movement, but I'm quite okay with that. So now we've got some signposting here that's already set up. Again, if you'd like me to show how I created the rounded corner effect, the text overlaying it, we've got a gradient coming in behind the text. If you want me to share that code and to create a tutorial on it, just leave a comment. Or feel free to jump into our Pixel Haze DIY community over on the school platform. That's SKOOL. It's completely free, and you can ask these questions to me directly and to my team at Pixel Haze. I'm going to change the ratio to maybe 1:1 square, just so we've got a bit more of that photo coming in. And let's get rid of these photos and replace them with real content. Now I'm going to go back to the main settings and select a page, and I'm going to select blog. Now I've added the blog post in. We can see our 3 latest blog items have come in quite easily. Alternatively, I could add in things like team profiles, which can work really nicely because it means then you can have this on a page that's not on the homepage. Here, for example, we've got the date post. We really want to get rid of that date post. If we scroll down on the settings here, I'm looking to find it. It might be in content, in fact, I think it is. And we can see the primary metadata. So if we select none for the primary metadata, it gets rid of that date post. So now it becomes more than just a blog post. Likewise, the title for here, we can either change it to, for example, the Pixel Haze team. And I can copy this because I might use it elsewhere. So if you find that's a bit small and not really the impact that you want to get, we just get rid of that heading text. So it just moves it up a little bit. And now what we can do is add a text block in above. And then we can choose the alignment to the bottom to make it a bit closer to the text. And now we've added this section. So say, for example, we had a landing page or a service page, we can bring this in below. And because of the images that have been uploaded into this section, especially Will, poor Will with his head being cropped off at the top here. So let's do one more thing. And we're going to change that aspect ratio to a vertical ratio there. So we can see all of Will's head now. And that's looking nice and sharp. So there we go. We've been able to add that and adjust it. But I did say that I was going to show you how we can filter via categories and tags. So let's just wrap up with this option. If you can see in the content section, we've got filter items, and we can filter via category or tag. The reason they're grayed out is because of this particular content being fed through, there are no categories or tags selected. Likewise, featured only, there is an option when we add a new blog post that we can set it to featured. So let's instead go back up and change it from team profiles, which makes our title redundant, but we're going to look past that. And maybe look at Web Design 101. These are a series of articles that are kind of timeless, so again, the date post isn't really important for it. These are type of information guides. Web Design 101 is probably a good explanation to demonstrate some of the principles in design. It's all on the Pixel Haze Academy site, all completely free. Here we can filter via categories. So for example, color in web design. Notice I've got the real proper British spelling of color, which is probably hurting my SEO, but I'm not changing. Then we can choose the tag as well. So we can filter via category and tag. So this means we can have hundreds and hundreds of blog posts, and we can really drill down in terms of what posts will feed through to an individual page. So if we imagine that we've got these pages, and this is something I need to do. So when we've got a blog post about the color palette selection, we can then have related posts at the bottom, which has everything that's tagged to that. And then again, I can do the same thing. I can go in and remove the metadata. Or in this case, which could be quite suitable, I could show the category in there. And there we go. So now we've sorted and filtered by category. And of course we can do it by tag, or we can do it via category and tag, really drilling it down. So I think we're going to wrap it up there. I'm going to record one more video, which will probably be a bit quicker, showing how we can use this as summary blocks only and not actually using the click-through page. That will probably be a much quicker tutorial. This is a Squarespace blog summary block. So it's feeding the content from the blog into this feature. It's had a whole load of custom code to make it look wholly unique with this card style, with the rounded corners and the text overlay. Stay tuned for a tutorial on how to build that yourself using ChatGPT in the near future. But in this tutorial, I'm going to say, what if this wasn't a blog? How can we use summary blocks as interactive and dynamic signpost sections that are much easier to update? So that's a little bit confusing. Don't worry, because I'm going to cover this exactly in this tutorial. And if I go to my Squarespace admin page, I've got a page that I've already been editing in a previous tutorial. So we're going to jump out of that, go back to the page. This is just a test page that I've built on our site. And we can see that we've got a summary block in here. It's carried across the styling because of the custom code again. So if it doesn't look identical to your summary block styling, don't panic. That's part of the reason. So what I'm going to do is add a new section, add a blank section, and we're going to start from a blank canvas. I'm going to edit this section, go to colors, and then I might choose light 1. So we can see it's not the white background, so it separates from the section below. This angle here is by using a divider. So let's just match it up. Because once you've added and styled one divider on a page, when you go to add the next one, it will remember the last one you chose, the last settings. So that makes it nice and consistent. Now we're going to add a block, and we're going to choose a summary block. So we can see straight away, even though this is a different type of summary block to this one, this is a carousel, whilst this is a wall, I believe. We can see that the rounded corners on these are universal, so all of my summary blocks have rounded corners on the edges of the images. That's by design, because that's what we use across our entire brand. In fact, the rounded corners on this design reflect the edges of an old CRT monitor or classic TV set, because we do love our retrofuturism at Pixel Haze. So I'm going to double click on that, and I'm going to go to design, and you can see the wall option. So if I change to carousel, you can see that it matches the same style as the home page. We've got that subtle gradient behind the paragraph text, and we've got the text overlay in the image. Really nice and compact way of creating that modern look and feel. If I go for more items and then maybe 4 per row, it will work, but it looks a little bit crammed. Whilst if I drop to 2, I've got it mostly working, but because of the settings I've chosen the custom code, you can see overlapping there. So I think to make it easier, we're going to go with a grid design for this one, which only has the rounded corner effect. Instead of number of items per row, we need to change the size and spacing. And if I change the column width of each of these images, maybe reduce the gutter width to about 40, we've got our grid gallery. So what if we didn't want these to link through to a blog? First of all, we need to select a page to link it up to. And I'm going to choose Web Design 101, because there's enough content in there. And we can see that this content isn't necessarily date specific. So what we can do is go to the primary metadata underneath content and change it from date posted to, say, category. And now we can see we've got options here showing what category it's in. These options don't actually have categories, so I need to just sort out a bit of organizing there to make sure that it's nice and universal. Also, we've got 8 items, so let's go to 12. Okay, so now we've got a nice selection of these articles. These are all actually available on the website somewhere as well. So if you're interested in finding more of the theory behind web design, for example, if you come into this industry as a hobbyist and you want to make a career of it, that's a good place to start. I'd also strongly recommend our DIY community over on School. That's SKOOL. It's completely free, and you can engage with myself and my team at Pixel Haze Academy by asking questions. Maybe a follow-up to this video. But that's not why you're here, so let's jump over now to the blog post itself and show how we can link to an individual page. But first, I'm just going to demo where they're going at the moment and why we want this effect. This is an article about this particular topic. Absolutely fine if you're looking at largely text-based content and you're happy with a single width layout. But with this blog post, if I click on edit it, those who have been using Squarespace for some time will know that this is the old Squarespace 7.0 editor. We can't just grab blocks, move them around. It's not as fluid, pun intended, as the Fluid engine. So the design is a little bit more dated. With a lot of blog posts, that can work really well because we want to get content in there and we don't want to be micromanaging the layout of each individual blog post. The detail on those pages is heavily around the text content or adding in features like maybe a image or where you may want to add in a video block. That's all well and good, and we use this format for our blog and for these articles. What if we wanted to create an individual landing page? Let's just take one of these examples here. So I need to update this one. It's not really fitting in with some of the design we've got on the site, but you can see this has a far more bespoke layout and format to it than the blog post format. We can't use full width sections with single width columns, and it's quite a narrow width as well. If we want to link any page to a more detailed or dynamic landing page from a summary block, we can. If I jump back into the admin area, this time instead of going back to our test page, I'm going to search for Web Design 101, and we can see it's under Build Your Own Website. So if you're interested in finding out where it is, it's here. Okay, so we can see the blog in the left-hand side here. Now if we click on the Settings option, click on Settings, it's a very quick change. We can add in a direct source URL. Let's change this one just for a few seconds, and I'll come back and remove it straight afterwards. So let's go to, I'll click at it once, pixelhaze.studio. So this will take it to a completely different website, or alternatively, you could link it to our membership page on Pixel Haze Academy, keeping it on the same site. All I need to do now is link the post title to the source URL. This means we don't have to worry about putting any content within the blog post. We only need to add in the information that's here. So we're looking at to add a title when we first add the post itself. Then we go into the Options tab here, and we can add tags and categories if we want to filter them. We've got the Content tab, we've got the thumbnail image, and we've got the Exit option. And that's really all we need to add in addition to the title of the blog post when we first added it in. We can leave this page blank because we're not actually using the blog post page itself. Instead, we are now forwarding that summary element to that page, if it works. I don't think I need to put the HTTPS in, but we'll find out in just a moment now when I test it. And I'm just going to make sure at this stage I'm going to put HTTPS in. Without doing that, so we can put what we call a relative link, where we just put basically membership, and it would put the / in automatically and just link to that page on the site. But I'm going to put a full URL in, or we can link to an external site as well. There's a lot we can do with this. Now I'm going to press save. I'm going to go back out of this, and I'm going to go to our demo page again. I think it's still got the search filter applied. So if I go all the way back down here to demo, and on the demo page, I'm going to test this link now, and it takes us to a completely different website. Whilst the others, because we haven't updated that setting and linked to the URL, will take you through to the original blog post. It's a little feature that most people don't know about, but it allows you so many more options with the blog post in Squarespace. I hope that's made sense. Hope you found it really helpful. If you've got any follow-up questions, feel free to leave them in the comments and I'll endeavour to get back to you. Or alternatively, do the smart thing, join our free community over on School. I'll leave a link in the description. Otherwise, I'll catch you next time. Cheers.